Welcome to the Social Smarty Show. Today I am chatting with my good friend Hanna, and Hanna is a social media marketing expert. She has her own podcast called Let's Talk Socials. But today we're not talking about social media. Well, we are, but not in that context. Today we are talking about her other business, Busy with Books. Now, Hanna created Busy with Books as an alternative to the usual yoga or wellness retreats offered in New Zealand. Her retreats are designed for book lovers who crave a weekend to unwind with a good book, free of obligations and expectations. How good does that sound? Hey, Hanna, welcome to the show. So good to have you here.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Now, I've given the quick version, but I wondered, how would you describe Busy with Books?
Oh, good question. I think it's a business at the same time. It's also my mission, I guess, to bring bookish people together. That's why I started the business. I do that in real life through the reading retreats, as you already mentioned, but also online because I know not everyone can physically come to the reading retreat. It's also a bit of a investment in time and money. So not everyone can make it to the physical retreat. So I'm trying to also help people find bookish friends online through the book club. And I guess it was born out of two things that I noticed in my life as a social media strategist, but also as a person who likes to read a lot. I saw, first of all, that there were a lot of women who didn't have enough time to read. So whenever I would mention that I love to read, I'm a big bookish nerd that loves to get her nose stuck into a book. Whenever I would mention that, people would say, oh yeah, I love to read too, but I never get the time to read. Like I have so many books on my list that I just don't have the time to get stuck into. That was the first thing. And then the second thing, being a little bit introverted and knowing that a lot of people who love to read are also introverts, I know how hard it can be to find friends who love the same thing, but are also introverts because we don't tend to go out into the wild and read there. We usually read at home on the couch or in bed. So it can be really tricky to find other people who have similar interests. And I know how hard it can be when you love something, like you love reading, and the people around you, like your family, your partner, they aren't into it as much as you are, and you just want to talk about the books that you read with someone else. You're like, oh, did you see that plot twist? And like, I didn't see it coming at all. Or what did you think of this book or that book? And I think that is half of the fun of reading, is discussing it with other people and seeing what they thought. So those kind of two things together made me want to embark on this new journey of founding a second business. And then earlier this year in April, I started the book club then, which I guess is kind of an extension of the retreats, because everyone who comes to a retreat, they get 3 months of the book club for free. So it prolongs that feeling of bliss of reading and exchanging thoughts on books after the retreat. But at the same time, it's also a cost-effective, I guess, location-independent alternative to the retreats for those who can't travel because they don't have the time or they can't make it work right now. So that's how I would describe it.
So you have people in the book club who haven't actually attended a retreat.
Yeah, I would say most of the people, actually. I think there's only 1 or 2 people so far that have attended retreats. Obviously, I have also only hosted 2 retreats so far, but I hope in the future that more people who will come to the retreats also then join the book club afterwards and keep the bookish chats going much longer than just that weekend.
Cool. So when did you exactly start Busy with Books? When was your first retreat?
So I started Busy with Books at the end of August last year, so 2024. And then the first retreat happened mid-November. And then the last retreat I did in March. The next retreat is going to be in September. So it's a very new business still.
Awesome. And so thinking about starting a business like this, it's obviously driven from passion, like it's something that you absolutely love, and you mentioned that it's your mission. How do you make that to turn it into a business? Couldn't this have just been a hobby? Like, what was the decision-making process behind that?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think for a long time, I have wanted to have a second business that wasn't focused on marketing. It was something, around a passion. And I was thinking of like products. What could I sell? Like, what would be a cool product? What do I have a passion for? And then when I had this idea for the reading retreats, and I also don't want to claim this as my unique idea, there's lots of other reading retreats in the world. I just kind of stumbled on the concept, and I was like, this would be really cool to do in New Zealand. So I guess then I just had that moment of like, yeah, this is what I could do. Like I could really make a business out of this, like organizing retreats, because obviously I could do it with friends. And I know that there's some content creators in New Zealand who have organized private retreats among themselves where they would just like rent an Airbnb and kind of come together. But my goal was kind of to bring strangers together. So people who don't already have bookish friends, they kind of want to go on the retreat and then meet people there. I just thought I could make this into a business. And like I said, I could have just done it as a hobby and invited friends and stuff. But organizing a retreat is also quite a costly affair. So that would have not been possible to do for the long term if it was just like, oh yeah, let's meet there and I'll pay for everything kind of situation. I guess also the drive to build something not social media related as like a second source of income in a way, but also a way for me to put my energy and my ideas into something that wasn't social media related, but that was selling something to the general population, not other business owners.
Is there any concern that you might lose some of the joy of reading if you turn it into a business?
There definitely was concern, and maybe there is still some, who knows, in the future, maybe I will get sick of it. But I've actually seen it more as a way to force myself to read more, like have an excuse to actually dive in, because I know like I do lots of book recommendations. Obviously with the book club, I need to find a new book every single month that we're going to read. So it forces me to actually look into what is being published right now, what is getting good recommendations or like reviews, what could we read? And it gives me an excuse to spend my time in that way, because I think I'm sometimes someone who scrolls on their phone and just like lays around and doesn't really actively relax in that way. And now I'm like, okay, we're meeting next week. I need to finish this book. So I'm going to force myself to read. So far, I haven't felt resentful or any negative feelings towards the reading or the books. If anything, it has made me appreciate the reading community more and being an active member in it as well.
Now, you're still in the early stages. What role would you say social media has played in getting you this far? So you've had 2 retreats, you've got the book club. How has social media played into that success?
I mean, a massive role, if not the main role in my business, in my marketing, because I used it very intentionally in the beginning to build an audience, because I made my accounts, I built a website, and I had 0 people. So obviously the first step is always getting people to know about what I'm doing and getting people interested in what I have to offer. So from the very beginning, I use social media quite intentionally, but also quite consistently. In the first month, I think I posted daily, if not multiple times a day, which isn't necessarily necessary if your business is already established. But my goal was to get the word out as fast as I could. So I started posting on TikTok. First, I just kind of pitched the idea. I was like, hey, I had this idea of a reading retreat in New Zealand. What do you guys think? Should we make it happen? And I got lots of people reply to my posts. Some of them had quite good reach and they were all like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Like, that would be awesome. And obviously at that point, I had already made the decision to pursue this as a business, but it was really great to see that there was demand for it as well. So I just kept posting from there on, and then quite quickly also got a waitlist onto my TikTok. So when I asked people, yeah, would you be interested in coming on a retreat? And everyone was like, yeah, let me know how I can sign up. I was like, actually, there is no retreat planned just yet, but here's my waitlist. You can sign up to it and you'll be the first to know about that first retreat. And that's how I got then 450 people on the wait list before I actually launched the first retreat, which was really cool. So yeah, massive role in growing the initial audience, but then also, later on in launching the book club, launching any other retreats, and also in getting things like the PR features that I have received so far, or that I managed to secure. That has been a huge part as well, because they saw that there was interest for my business and they saw that I had a bit of an audience already. It's not a huge audience, but they saw that there were people behind this, that people loved this idea. And through social media, they also found my account in the first place. So I wouldn't have managed to get all of these PR features if I hadn't had a active social media page.
So we'll talk about the PR features in a minute, but I'd love to go back to that first month where you're really posting really frequently and you don't actually have a date yet. You don't have anything that you're sort of actively promoting in terms of, here's where to give me your money.
Yeah.
Here's where to book your retreat. What sort of content were you creating in that first month to really build the buzz? So you're asking the question, you're telling people about your idea, seeing if there's any interest out there. That's obviously part of your content, but surely if you're posting every single day or multiple times a day, what sort of things are you posting?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that was also really tricky because obviously now that I have hosted retreats, I have footage from the retreats and I can show that and I can show people, look, this is what you can expect. This is what it looks like. These are the kind of people that come to the retreats, and it's so much easier. But obviously in that first month, I didn't have any of that. So I needed to get very creative with what I posted. What I did was quite a lot of like storytelling. So I would film myself making a mood board on Pinterest, for example, to kind of show people what I was envisioning. So I would have like a mood board of the food that I wanted to create or the accommodation that I was looking into. And I created little snippets of that. I basically took people along as I built the business. And that's something that I would highly recommend to anyone. Instead of just building everything and then going out and be like, hey, this is the thing I built, I just took people along. And I was like, hey, I also have this idea, like we could do a mini book fair where people bring their books and then we could like swap books at the retreat and you basically leave with more books than you came from without having to pay for the books. So all these little ideas that I had for the retreat, I kind of pitched those and also sense checked, would people be interested in it, or also asked, what would you like to do at the retreat? And then I feel like once you get started, the content kind of creates itself in a way, because then someone would reply, oh, maybe we could also do this. And then I would just create a video as a reply to a comment, for example. And then, for example, one time I mentioned that I wasn't going to be serving alcohol at the retreat because obviously there's licensing issues as a small business. At the same time, also, I didn't want it to be the main reason why people came to the retreat. Someone commented something like, oh, if there's no alcohol, then that's a no-brainer for me. Like, as in, like, I'm not going to come then if there's no alcohol. And then I kind of created content around that and reinforced why that was a decision that I made and kind of conveyed the values that I had for the retreat or the vision that I had. So I feel like it wasn't actually that difficult to come up with content because I just kept the momentum going and there was always something that I could create. And then someone would comment, you don't look Italian, because I said in one video that I was from Italy and they were like, you don't look Italian. I was like, yeah, I know. This is the story of my life. I also don't have an Italian name. So I kind of did a video about that, like where I'm from and that is a German speaking region, but it is still very much Italy, and kind of, told my story through the different pieces of content and took people along. And then as we came closer to the retreat, I did something like day one of preparing for my reading retreat. And I took people along as I went to the supermarket, as I got the goodie bags and all those kind of things. So I really showed people the effort that went into the retreat as well. So they would see the value and just took them along on the journey. And I found that quite a successful approach and basically never had a moment where I didn't have an idea for the next piece of content. It could just naturally came together in a way.
So where were you posting this? Was it TikTok, Instagram, stories, reels? What sort of content were you focused on?
Definitely video content, mainly. Even to this day, most of my content on Instagram and on TikTok are videos, just because I found that was easier to convey my message through a video than through a carousel post, for example. So initially mostly on TikTok, but then my strategy was, because I knew TikTok would be easier to grow than on Instagram because of how the algorithm works, I would basically put the link to the waitlist on my Instagram. And in my TikTok content, I would say, if you want to sign up for the waitlist, it's on my Instagram, kind of pretending that I couldn't add a link to the TikTok. I was like, oh yeah, it's over on my Instagram. So a lot of people that followed me on TikTok also went over and followed me on Instagram, which is always a great strategy to have two audiences on on different platforms, in case one would get hacked or would disappear. So I kind of grew them at the same time. I would say, however, that at this point in time, I'm focusing more on Instagram. Like I'm still posting on both platforms, but Instagram lately has been a bit easier for me to grow and a little bit more aligned with the direction I'm going in. Like I can send DMs to people. I can do that on TikTok as well, but it just feels a bit more natural on Instagram. So I'm still doing both, but the focus has shifted a little bit. I do the same content more or less on both platforms. Sometimes I will test out an idea on TikTok, see how it goes, and then swap it over to Instagram as well. But obviously Instagram with stories is quite a huge thing as well, especially around the book club, because I can just snap a shot of me reading the book that we're reading that month and be like, oh, this is such a good book. Like if you still want to join us, here's the link. And I found that quite effective because most of the times when I talk about the book club, there's one or two people joining it and yeah, we grow it from there.
Question though around engagement. So obviously, I mean, a lot of the content you're creating is in response to engagement. I know there's a lot of business owners out there that are really struggling with engagement at the moment, and it sometimes feels like there's no one out there. But did you notice a difference between the way people engage on TikTok versus the way they engage on Instagram?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like TikTok in general, people comment much quicker than on an Instagram. I don't really know why. I feel like it's maybe the general culture on TikTok. It's just more normal to comment on people's posts. At the same time, Instagram is so much easier for people to reply to a story that I'm doing, which I don't really have on TikTok as much, or to send me a message if they have a question. So in that regard, I wouldn't necessarily say that I have more engagement on TikTok, maybe on the public content as like on the videos. But yeah, Instagram is different in that regard. People comment a lot less on the posts, but I know that they're watching. I can see that my reach is good. I can see that they're sending it to people. That is quite important to me. I see that they're saving it. So I kind of focus more on those metrics for Instagram, and then for TikTok, indeed, more like, are they commenting? What is the general vibe? But yeah, I've definitely seen a difference in engagement compared to my marketing business, because obviously there I'm talking to business owners. So I think there's more a culture of supporting each other and yeah, commenting on a post publicly. Whereas now I'm obviously talking to the general population, to the average consumer. And there's a lot less of that, publicly commenting. There's more of tagging friends and being like, oh, this would be cool. And maybe not being aware of the fact that I can see the comments. Sometimes you're just like, yeah, I can see what you're commenting on here. They're like, oh, this would be really cool, but it's really expensive. And you're like, yeah, I can see your comment. Like, it's a bit weird. But yeah, I guess it's just the difference in marketing to consumers versus the business owners that I usually talk to.
Okay. So earlier on, you mentioned some PR opportunities.
Mhm.
Are you able to talk a little bit about that and just share what they were and how they came about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had several different media features in this first year of business. The first one was in Capsule, so an online magazine here in New Zealand. And they actually reached out to me through social media, which was really cool because I wanted to do PR later down the track. It was always something I wanted to do because I never really did it with my marketing business, but I knew it was going to be important for Busy with Books. Yeah, it was always kind of like, oh yeah, once I've done the first retreat, maybe later, like maybe I'll think about it and we'll see how that goes. But then they reached out to me and they were like, oh, we really love your idea. Would you be open to an interview? And I was like, yeah, of course, it would be really cool. So we had an interview and they published an article on their online magazine. And I was quite surprised about how many people then followed me from that one feature. They also posted it on their feed and on their stories. So that was really cool. And the first moment where I was like, this is actually really effective. And obviously, as someone who lives in the digital marketing space, thinking of like the more traditional types of media that they can also be effective, it's kind of a little bit like you're cheating on your own job in a way. You're like, oh no, the digital marketing is so much better. So I was really surprised to see that it was very effective. And that's when I kind of shifted into, maybe I should try PR earlier than I actually planned to do it. And then I just reached out to people. It's as simple as that. I think a lot of people think that when you get PR features, it's because people approach you, and that can be the case at times. But I just looked up journalists. I did quite a lot of research into the publications that I wanted to be featured in. I looked into the different journalists and what their topics were. Like, I wouldn't obviously approach like a financial journalist and ask them to cover my story, but they were like travel journalists or journalists who were talking about books or reading or wellness in general. And then I just pitched my story, basically. I just said, hey, I'm the first one to organize reading retreats in New Zealand, and I think this would be a really cool story for you to talk about. Maybe these are a few angles or story ideas that you could use. And sometimes they did use that idea. Sometimes they came up with something themselves. But yeah, I kind of used my social media pages as leverage in a way as well. I was kind of like, hey, I've built this community. There's some interest around this topic, some demand for my reading retreats. So it would be maybe a cool idea to, yeah, feature in your publication. And yeah, I've had quite a few replies from journalists. I also had some unanswered emails. Like, that's, I guess, just part of the game as well. Not everyone is going to reply. You can follow up and then they will maybe still not reply. But I would say most of the people actually got back to me and, yeah, had several interviews then, and they wrote different articles on the reading retreats in general, maybe like the phenomenon of reading retreats. And then I was pitched as a New Zealand one at the end. Then quite recently, I was featured in Women's Day New Zealand. That was quite a big feature, like 2 double-page spread of me and the retreats, which I didn't expect initially. So that was really cool. And then I was featured in the New Zealand Herald and in stuff. And yeah, I think that was it so far. But yeah, it has been a really great experience. And if anything, I would recommend to people to just reach out, just pitch yourself. If you want an opportunity, then just go after it. It's not gonna fall into your lap. Maybe it will at some point, but if you want it now, then you should just pitch yourself. And it's a very normal thing to do. It's not weird. Journalists get pitched to all the time. It's not an unusual thing to do. They're gonna be happy because they are looking for stories all the time. So just find your story, find the what is it that people can say about you and why would that be interesting to them, and then just pitch it to them. The worst thing that can happen is that they say no.
Yeah, that's great advice. So it seems like you're pretty comfortable sharing all sorts of aspects of your business online, but is there anything that people might not see behind the scenes?
I mean, I would say I'm quite intentional with what I share. There's always this word of like authenticity in the space. I'm not a big fan of it because I think we're all curating what goes onto our socials in a way. You know, whatever you see is, if anything, curated authenticity. But I think I'm trying to, with the things that I do share, I try to show my personality. I try to not be different than how I would be in real life, because obviously I want people to get to know me before they come to a retreat. And then I would hate for them to come through the doors and be like, wow, this person is really different to how they are on social media. So I'm trying to be as much me on social media as I am in real life. But I do also want to say that I'm quite intentional about what I share online. So what you see online is not everything that happens in my life. There's other things that I intentionally keep out of my social media or out of my online presence. Not because I want to hide it necessarily, but just for my own mental health, for like, for example, not showing certain aspects of my life, like certain family members that might not want to appear on social media, or like I'm not going to show my house from the outside, like stuff like that I'm quite intentional about not sharing. So I did think quite a lot about what do I want to share and what do I not want to share on my socials. And that's my strategy in that sense.
So, with so much interest early on and lots of eyeballs on you, has there been any sort of real negative, anything that's popped up that's been negative? I mean, we've all heard stories about trolls and how people can
Mm.
be unkind. Have you experienced any of that?
Yes, definitely. Although I have to say it hasn't been a huge thing. Like there have been the occasional comments here and there, but I have to say I've been quite lucky. Maybe I haven't reached that critical mass of reach yet where all the trolls come at you. I think so far I've been quite lucky in that regard, but there have definitely been negative comments. Some of them you kind of expect, especially around pricing. I find, especially when I think it was when the New Zealand Herald reported about me, there were some comments on their page about like, oh, I can also just go to a hotel and like read there. Like, why would I have to come to a retreat? It's like, yeah, okay, that's your opinion. Like, of course you could do that, but you haven't done it so far, so you're probably not going to do it next year either. So, there's some like people will always have opinions about what you're doing. So I'm not focusing too much on those comments. The only thing that I actually really didn't expect was when I launched my book club. I expected some, not necessarily backlash, but I knew there would be some comments around the retreats because there's always people who don't understand why you should take time off for yourself, why you need to go somewhere to, switch off, recharge. There's always people who don't get that. And like, that's their opinion. That's fine. But also around pricing, and some people would say it's way too expensive. Again, that's their opinion. They obviously also don't see what it costs me to do these kind of retreats. So that's another story. But then when I launched the book club, that is what I really didn't expect to get some very negative comments from people on me launching the book club, specifically around it being a paid book club. So there was this group of girls, women that I think had their own book club together, like as a hobby. And they kind of all came after me once I launched this book club. I don't even know how they found me, but they kind of came after me and they left comments like, you're profiting off people's loneliness. And like, I would never do that. I'm a chronically ill person and still I would never charge someone to be in a book club and kind of like that. So I was really like, whoa, I didn't expect that because like I said, with the retreats, I kind of knew there would be some comments around that and that is always to be expected. But with the book club, I really didn't expect it because my main reasoning behind the book club was that it is a more cost-effective alternative to coming to a retreat. So for everyone who can't travel because of either time or budget restraints, the book club is a really affordable way to get in contact with other bookish people, to have some sort of commitment of people. They're paying a monthly fee to be in the book club, and that helps the book club to be more intentional, to be more consistent also, because I think when you're committing some monetary resources to something, you're also taking it more seriously than if you're just in a free Facebook group, because there's a million Facebook groups and there's so many posts that go unanswered. There's so many people that ask the same question. So to be a part of a book club that is a more curated experience where it's quite intentional, where people actually want to be in the club and want to participate is quite something different. So that was kind of my intention behind it. And then I was quite surprised to get that sort of backlash. But then from experience, from being a social media strategist, knowing what goes on social media, I was pretty quick at just blocking them because I didn't want that kind of negativity on my profile. I did explain myself, I reasoned with them, but at some point it just became a bit ridiculous and they kind of came up with arguments and things that I was just like, what are you saying? Like they were commenting things like, why do you think your time is worth being paid for? Like, why should you get paid for your time? And I was like, what do you mean? That's like the most basic economic principle that people get paid for their time, right? So, like, don't want to go into it all too much, but basically, at some point I was just like, you're not actually wanting to have a discussion with me. You're actually just here to troll, and to, get your frustration out, I guess. So that was really the only very negative experience that I had so far on social media. But yeah, I
And
took
when
action, blocked them, and the solution was there. The problem was solved.
that sounds like we're talking from a place of, reflecting on it, and you can say, "I blocked them and I moved on." When it was happening, though, like in the heat of the moment, when you're getting these messages, did it give you the wobbles? Did it make you think about, your business, or did it how was your mental health? Did it upset you? Do you have advice for anyone else that could be going through that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And you'll remember I probably sent you quite a few voice messages about it, being like, oh my God, am I the bad person here? Like, did I do something wrong? Am I not supposed to have a paid book club where there is already millions of other paid book clubs out there? It's like, oh, did I do something wrong? Like, was this a bad idea? But then I was like, no, actually, I know why I'm doing this. And the people that signed up on the first day were all so excited. And I just kind of tried to focus on the people that did decide to come into the book club and that were really happy about having a place where they could talk to other bookish people. And then, yeah, put my energy into that. But yeah, I would be lying if I said I didn't have a surge of adrenaline and be like, oh my God, like people hate me. What am I doing here? Why do these strangers suddenly hate me out of nowhere? I think that's quite normal, but I feel like when you know why you're doing something, when there is a genuine good intention behind it, and you know that people see that intention and they actually get why you're doing it, the people that actually matter, then you can quite quickly switch over to them and just not focus on the negative people, because clearly it wasn't for them. But yeah,
Mm.
definitely. And the initial, like the air went out of my lungs. It's like, oh my God, people hate me, because so far I had always received really nice comments, really positive comments. So then you see that comment and you're like, oh, I did not
Mm.
expect that. So for my mental health, definitely the block feature was a good one to have.
Yeah. Goodness me. Okay. Now, because you're in a bit of a unique position in that you
Mm.
are a social media professional, and even though this business isn't social media related, you obviously used it as a tool to build the business. Was there anything that you tried with your social media that didn't work out as you thought it might, or vice versa? Were there any sort of surprises, things that you posted or shared that went viral and you thought, wow, I didn't see that coming?
I mean, one of the things that I didn't really expect to go this well was definitely in the last launch. So when I launched the retreat for September, what I decided to do was to ask the community to help me name the bedrooms. So I thought that was
Oh,
really a
wow.
cool idea, because we had 3 different bedrooms and they all had quite distinct designs. Like they all look quite different. And I thought it would be really cool to, instead of saying you can book bedroom 1, 2, or 3, which is nice and they can see the photos, it would be much cooler to actually give them names and say, oh, I'm sleeping in the Jane Austen room, which is one of the names that we ended up choosing. And I kind of wanted it to be a bit of a competition of like engaging the community in a way. But obviously with anything like engaging the community, asking people to do something, you always have that thought of like, oh my God, what if nobody submits an idea? And then I'm just left with no ideas. And I'm like, now I have to come up with all different kind of ideas so they can vote in the second round for the names that they want to pick for the rooms. But luckily that wasn't the case. I got 92 suggestions for names, which was crazy. I had to make a whole Excel sheet with all the different names and all the people who submitted names. There were a few who probably sent me like 10 different suggestions. They were really into it. So that was really cool. And then in the second round, where I chose some of my favorites and people got to vote, I think about 140 people then voted for their favorites. And then we found 3
Wow.
different names that I thought were quite cool. And it also showed me again how clever the readers are, how nerdy they can be, and how much they love to get into like word plays and stuff like that. So it made me really feel like part of a community. And I was like, oh, this is so cool, because we all have this like shared interest. And I think it was a nice moment of connection in there. So I didn't expect to get this many suggestions, and the impact it then had on the rest of the launch. So people were like, oh, I want to sleep in the bedposts and betrayals room. And you're like, cool, yeah, that's a good one. Like, it's not just bedroom 3. So I think it
Hmm.
also helped people to form a connection to the rooms already. So I think that was really cool. In terms of something that hasn't worked. I wouldn't necessarily say I've had major fails or major marketing moves that didn't work out. If anything, maybe the Women's Day feature that I thought might have done more, might have achieved more. Obviously, we'll have to see in the long term what it does, and I can use it on my website, and I've promoted it on my socials, and it's helped me in that sense. But with the other features like on Stuff, on Capsule, on the New Zealand Herald, I saw an immediate increase in traffic to my website, in followers, in people reaching out, not just people interested in coming to a retreat, but also venues pitching to me, authors, people who wanted to include stuff in goodie bags. That has been a lot more with the other features than with the Women's Day feature. Obviously, that one was also a print feature, so it's a little bit different than an online one. So I think that would be the only thing that probably didn't go as planned, maybe, or just didn't reach my expectations, maybe, in a way. But it was definitely a good learning for me to know where to invest my time and who to reach out to in the future.
Love that. Okay, we are going to wrap things up, but listening to your story today, it seems like you've had so many wins. You seem like you've just got it all figured out. But if there is someone out there who's a business owner or an aspiring business owner listening to this today, is there anything that you would like to say to them?
I mean, I think coming back to what I said before, I'm very intentional about what I share on my social media. So, and anyone is, I think, anyone who posts professionally on social media, I would say, don't fall into the trap of thinking that everything you see on my social media is my whole life. Like I said, there is a lot more to my real life, positives, but also negatives that I might not include on there. It is a curated authenticity. You see what I want you to see, basically. And anyone who posts professionally will have that kind of approach in a way. So yeah, don't think you know everything, but
Cool.
yeah, everyone kind of has that approach, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, right. To wrap things up, I want to do a bit of a game if you're into
Yeah.
it. So I'm calling this post or pass. What
Mhm.
I'll do is I'm throw out a few things to you. The sort of things that you see on social media that
Mhm.
maybe aren't
Mm.
quite as curated as we've been talking about. And what I want you to do is just tell me very quickly without overthinking it, would you post
Mhm.
it or would you pass? Okay, you're in?
Okay. Yeah. 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 Not
Cool.
overthinking stuff is definitely yeah, my thing. No. Go ahead.
Okay, right. Would you post it or pass it? First up, your screen time report.
I would. I feel like I have done that in the past. Yeah, I would.
I feel like you have too. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, what about a screenshot of a DM of someone asking for a discount?
Mm, I would. I wouldn't probably give them the discount. I will probably share it, maybe with some like extra context added to it, and like as to why I wouldn't give a discount, especially for like a marketing service, but also for Busy with Books. Yeah, I would share that.
Cool. What about a really big fail? Like maybe
Mm,
your food doesn't arrive for the retreat or
mm.
there's some big nightmare that happens. Would you post it?
I think so, because I think it always builds your story, and it also shows that not everything goes right, and it can act as a redemption arc in a way as well, of like how I solved this problem or how I did it. And I think that always makes for interesting content.
Cool. What about you in your PJs with no makeup, just out of bed, just fresh faced as you woke up?
I mean, I work from home, so most of the content that I post on my stories is basically that, me in jogging pants sitting at my desk. So yeah, I've done lots of posts without makeup. So yeah, I would. I would.
Cool. What about a selfie mid ugly cry?
Um, I wouldn't, not because I don't think it belongs on social. I think there's quite a discussion around like, should you film yourself while crying? I just never had the urge to film myself or take photos of myself when I was crying, because I'm so in the situation, in the moment, that it doesn't come to mind that I should take photos of myself. So I probably wouldn't post it, more because I probably wouldn't have the actual footage of it.
Okay, last one is your last Google search. No matter what it is, would you take a screenshot and share it?
Yeah, I would. It's probably something like, how do you spell this word because English is not my native language. So it's usually something boring like that. So if you're interested in that, I can definitely share that.
Oh, I love it. Awesome. Oh, thank you so much for playing that game with me. Okay. Thank you, Hannah, for joining me today. I absolutely love that chat. I loved learning all about Busy with Books and your journey and what a massive role social media has played. And where's the best place for people to find out more about Busy with Books?
On the website, busywithbooks.com, or on my socials, I'm Busy with Books New Zealand on most of them. So Instagram or TikTok is where you could find me.
Cool. Awesome. Alrighty. All of those links are in the show notes. And if you loved this episode today, I would really love for you to share it with a friend. And of course, if you have time to leave me a rating or a review wherever you're listening to this, I would be so, so grateful. Until next week, stay social.